Welcome back, everyone. And our next session tackles the importance of digital marketing transformation. It presents a roadmap to success and achieving personalization. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Stuart Mackay, General Manager at Reprise MENA. Reprise is a digital-first company that empowers clients with cutting-edge digital marketing solutions. And Stuart has over 18 years of experience in consulting and complex digital transformations across a number of industry sectors. Wow, Stuart, welcome on board, and the floor is yours.
Thanks so much for the intro. It's great to be here. Great to be at the Vibe Martech Fest Saudi Arabia. Hopefully next year we can all do it in person. I think given the sort of rapid amount of change that's going on in Saudi, I think it's great to be discussing such relevant topics. These are real challenges that are facing every brand at the moment. It's great to talk to you today about digital marketing transformation. I think it's a bit of a sort of buzzword that's used quite loosely in the market at the moment. Just to give you a bit of intro into Reprise, I don't know how many of you are familiar with us, but we are sort of the leading experts regionally in customer intelligence solutions. I like this one. We turn digital chaos into customer common sense. We help brands understand people, create better experiences, and we're sort of experts in delivering data-driven solutions for business growth. The agenda today, we're going to cover off sort of what does it truly mean to transform. As I said, it's quite a loose sort of word, digital marketing transformation. So I'll give you sort of a sense of what it means to us here at Reprise. How do you go about sort of assessing your brand's digital marketing maturity? So how do you know where you are on that journey? I'll give you a sort of a sense of how you can sort of understand that. And then what is that sort of part of personalization? So, lots of people have mentioned sort of personalization, but what does it actually mean? How can you achieve it? And actually, what does it mean to you as an organization? So hopefully that's an interesting agenda for you. For us at Reprise, what we've tried to do is simplify the sort of transformational sort of journey as much as possible. Digital marketing transformations are notoriously difficult, as everybody will know. They take an extensive amount of time to complete. I think trying to sort of create a methodology that's simple for customers to use is essentially important. How we've sort of split up sort of what's required of a transformation is it really needs to take place across 4 key areas. 1, marketing, obviously. 2, technology. 3, data. And then sort of most important for me is sort of the organizational aspect. I think in a post sort of COVID world at the moment, the consumer's expectation has sort of grown in regards to brands, in the way they interact, in regards to how they communicate with them. In order for brands to sort of do this effectively, they really do need to transform, and the 4 areas are pretty critical to moving brands towards being able to offer those sort of personalized and relatable experiences for their consumers. So if I just sort of deep dive into the 4 areas in a bit more detail, data for me it's all around sort of utilizing those assets better, understand your consumers, source of the history, what are their needs, what are their behaviors. I think from an organizational perspective, it's about really assessing from an organizational perspective what skills you need, what's the org structure, what's required to drive sort of more agile ways of working internally. And then I think marketing, obviously essentially important, but moving away from sort of generic campaign-based marketing to identification of sort of high-value audiences, allowing for more personalized campaigns and messaging. And then I think underneath that is that underlying end-to-end architecture. So introducing sort of technology that accelerates your marketing transformation. And one of the bits of technology which is fairly crucial to that, which I'm sure you've all heard about, is sort of the customer data platform. So just moving on. So we've split the sort of assessment of maturity into sort of 3 key areas. Sorry, one sort of people and that organizational piece, and then the last bit is around architecture. What does that architecture look like? So the aim of this slide is really to help you quickly assess sort of where your organization is and where your people are in relation to their digital marketing maturity. The more manually orientated your marketing activities are, the less data that's really being used to support your marketing efforts, and the less mature you are as an organization. And I think at the other end of the scale, the more data and tech that's being leveraged and the more operationally sophisticated you are, the more the organization sort of naturally evolves from being foundational to strategic, sort of finally reaching that transformational sector. Now, that is a fairly sort of tough journey. So to go from the bottom left to the bottom right, does take some time. But I think that strategic and transformational area is where sort of every brand in the region should be aiming for, because I think that gives you the ability to start interacting with your customers in a much more personalized way, using your tech and data much more effectively to drive, these personalized interactions which consumers today are craving. The next slide really is sort of a snapshot of sort of what sort of a future state architecture might look like. I've tried to simplify it as much as I can so that you can see. And I think you might look at this and say, okay, well, we've got a couple of these, these boxes ticked, but from what we're seeing in the region, it's highly unlikely that you have absolutely everything in place. And if you did, that it's integrated and providing that sort of consistent and personalized customer experience across all channels. You see in the yellow, the customer data platform sort of plays a really fundamental role in orchestrating any personalized messaging through sort of the various channels and customer touch points. Being able to interact with your customers sort of at the right moment, right time, right place is becoming that sort of expectation from consumers, and it actually is the difference between them actually choosing your brand versus another nowadays. These types of integrated architectures are what businesses need to have in place, because I think this interaction with clients is, as I said, now an expectation. Now, as I said earlier on in the previous slide, sort of this journey again, it's very much an evolution. DMPs historically are what a lot of brands have had, but we've talked about the cookieless future. Certainly, where we're heading, sort of in the direction is around how do customers use their first-party data more effectively, and I think that customer data platform sits at the heart of that sort of orchestration. What does that path to personalization look like? So most brands who are yet to sort of deploy a customer data platform will sit in the basic life cycle or micro-segmentation quadrants that you can see sort of earlier on. As soon as the customer data platform is deployed, which is badged sort of that real-time targeting, brands can start to really target individuals based on sort of historic behaviors and real-time context. This is really the first steps for a brand to be able to offer sort of any form of personalized experience for their consumers. The next best action brings in the personalization engine, and in conjunction with the CDP, you can start to really customize sort of user experiences by way of sort of dynamic content and offers. And then just really, I guess, the difference between the real-time targeting and one-to-one next best action is that real-time targeting is done in relation to real-time context, and the next best action is done in real-time behaviors and current business context. So obviously that's much more, sort of you hear about hyper-personalization, that's moving into, sort of that bracket. But certainly that one-to-one next best action and that retail sort of real-time targeting piece where you introduce the customer data platform is certainly where brands, should be heading. I think getting that far in itself is an achievement, but sort of the reality is at this point of time, very few brands sort of in the region are able to offer that dynamic communication with consumers, and particularly at a real-time or behavioral level. So that one-to-one omni-channel sort of, you can see at the top, that's very ambitious. That does take a long time. I think as soon as you start to add in other aspects, of your environment, such as like CRM, it becomes quite a complicated sort of journey, particularly for the legacy and heritage brands who have a lot of sort of challenges from a technology perspective. But certainly, I think, some of the solutions that exist today that sort of, give you the ability to get that 360 view of a consumer, that's definitely needs to be the evolution and sort of direction that brands are heading. Okay, so what does sort of that path to maturity look like? So I've tried to pull together here sort of a transformational plan so you guys can sort of get a view of sort of all the steps and phases that are required to, I guess, truly transform. I've split it into 3 phases just to make it easier. I've spread it across sort of 9 months. I think traditionally you'd look at any sort of transformation would take anything sort of between 9 and 16 months, which again, in its own right, depending on an organization, can be fairly aggressive. But yeah, as I said, in Reprise, we break down the transformation into 3 phases. Of course, there's a lot of prerequisite activity that's required to be done ahead of you just deploying technology. We're definitely not saying that. I think most instances, the organizational change aspects are even more important than deploying the tech itself. There's absolutely no point in deploying the technology if you don't have the resource and organization to support it. Having the organizational alignment as well of your CDP and personalization strategy from top of the organization right down to the bottom is critical. Our usual sort of digital marketing transformations, as I said, can take anything between 9 to 16 months, but it's, we've been involved in transformations that take 24 months. It really moves, at the pace of the organization. But I think if I look 2 years ahead and where in the direction of where all this is heading, that's quite a long time. And I think that 24 months time, I think customers and other brands would have probably caught up, and it could be quite risky to you as a business if transformations are taking that long. So as I said, I mapped out a pretty aggressive plan here outlining sort of the varying levels of maturity and what as an organization you would need to have in place to achieve sort of this hyper personalization objective. But as you can see, there's a lot needs to be done across the marketing and organizational functions. So you'll need both your organizations, respective agencies and partners all on board to assist with a transformation, like this. They shouldn't be undertaken lightly. And I think what I've tried to do in the next slide as well is just give you a flavor of some of the sort of transformational deliverables that should come out of a transformation. I think we've been involved with businesses today that they go ahead with the transformation, they go ahead with putting in place a bit of technology, hoping it's going to work. There's no business case, there's no view of sort of that future state vision and roadmap. So I've got some examples here of the sort of deliverables that you can expect or should be in place when transforming. I think more importantly, these are critical deliverables that are needed to support your transformation. If I call out some of the the important ones, I'd absolutely say that the future state vision and roadmap, as this maps out sort of the tech evolution of your business, the transformation of its architecture, how it stitches the marketing and traditional IT worlds together. The business case for me is absolutely crucial as well, because it ties in all of the relevant stakeholders, articulates the benefits that the organization can expect to see from a transformation like this, and in the introduction of technology, so everybody signed into it, bought into it. The mapping out of your data ecosystem, absolute necessity. It's really crucial that you know everything about all of your data sources, as well as having sort of that clarity on customer journeys and how they navigate and interact with your brand. There's a lot in the marketing excellence space to be done, particularly around sort of audience selection, identification, as well as sort of from a reporting perspective, having that critical insight to really help you make some of these strategic decisions. I think some of the brands we interact with, at the basic level, don't have sort of even the campaign reporting dashboards in place. So they're sort of making, I think, strategic decisions, quite blindly at the moment, when actually, getting control of their data, introducing the right technologies, that gives people that visibility to be able to make more strategic, sort of decisions on where they're spending their media budgets, what they're offering their consumers, and everything like that. And then lastly, what I've tried to do here is just, I guess, try and bring it all together for you. So I guess this for me is sort of it's our view of what that sort of ideal sort of architecture looks like. It brings the MarTech and AdTech together. It hopefully stitches everything together that I've outlined today. You can see it all working together. The roles of the various partners could play, how the technology works together, and effectively what, when bringing MarTech and sort of your AdTech environment, can do to help you sort of achieve your personalization objectives. Below is just a selection of the suppliers and vendors that we use to help brands, achieve this. I think it shows quite well the difference between, what an agency like ourselves would do versus a media agency. So I've tried to color code it there, but it also gives you a view of sort of what the customer, they might outsource that to a partner, but ultimately what the customer would do, the areas that they would play, particularly in sort of that, I guess, like more CRM related arena. So that's all I've got time for. I think I was under pressure from a timing perspective. And I'll hand back to you, Aziza. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you all today.
Thank you, Stuart, actually, for managing right on time and for sharing a powerful and a really rich presentation, as well as a success roadmap for our attendees, which I'm sure they will make a great use of when it comes to their marketing strategies. Thank you so much again, Stuart.